Oh, hello there. Yes, well, yes, the weekend. Well, I've caught up with some sleep and I'm feeling a bit more human. Yes, I'm very much in touch with reality. Yes, something perhaps the Labour Party with their 100 days haven't quite managed, or indeed other people. Yes. Anyway, it wasn't a very good weekend to be transphobic this weekend. I don't think it's any good weekend to be transphobic, but I think this weekend in particular has sort of shown them up as transphobic when it comes down to it. There was the LGBT Alliance Conference, of course, full of very, very concerned people who are very, very, very LG and very B, definitely very B, who are very, very concerned about a whole range of issue. Yes, aren't they? Anyway, various activists unleashed some small creatures in a box, which sort of hopped their way across the stage, which enabled the usual voices to sort of scream terrorism. It's a bit of a stretch. And complain about animal rights. Also a bit of a stretch for things that are basically raised to be eaten. So I'm sure some of them made a burst for freedom. Might be a metaphor one way or another there. But yes, anyway, the Metro finally managed to actually mention the fact that some of the people involved were quite young activists. And there is part of me which likes things like that. I like young people being involved. I originally trained to be a citizenship teacher, and there is part of me that likes the notion of activism, especially when it's something like that, which no matter how much froth you want to apply to it, didn't really do any harm, and did certainly highlight various people's reactions, shall we say. Yes, anyway, reality. These people need to have reality. I was reminded of ACT UP back in the late 80s, early 90s, a group of people that often used to demonstrate, and history was definitely on their side. You do get a lot of people out there who seem to magically think that the message we should take away from films like Star Wars is that people with an awful lot of political and military clout one way or another are somehow the underdogs, yeah? Everyone always imagines that they're part of the Rebel Alliance, but in reality they're not, are they? No, the LGB Alliance based at Tufton Street aren't really going to align themselves with a small group of rebels in Tunisia, if I can put it as bluntly as that. And, of course, the open secret about reality is, of course, that the LGB Alliance isn't anything to do with LGB stuff. It's simply a bunch of white straight people who, with a smattering of token, usually lesbians, are able to get their message across that they really don't like trans people. You get people like Kelly J. Keane who openly state this, okay? We all know it's true. Why not live up to, reality, what the rest of us should? We also had briefly J.K. Rowling getting into a bit of a spat with India Willoughby, where she was insisting that she didn't have any problems at all whatsoever with trans people. She just didn't like those people that were trying to take away women's rights, yes, who in her eyes, are trans people. So you can see the way that one goes in terms of, again, sort of squirming our way through a particular series of reality hoops. Yes, because we need to be in touch with reality. Speaking of which, I did have to smile at our good friend Carl Benjamin, who was getting very, very upset at, inevitably, Enoch Burke, who was once again arrested in Ireland because he can't leave the school where he no longer works alone. And you will see a lot of reality-based stuff on social media about him. But the reality that these people leave out, of course, is that the Burke family own a Christian-based school. So if he wanted to be a teacher, he could just go and teach there. Or perhaps he's such a bad teacher that even his parents won't have him. Yeah, his mum's the head teacher. All right? This isn't about teaching. This is about pure, unadulterated, nasty bigotry with a Christian face. Ah, yes, reality of Christians and biology together. There's a lot of it about this weekend. There was a lot of it about. I had to, again, sort of the notion of, all of these commentators like Amy Gallagher. Here she is, alphabet word perverts obsessions with children's bodies. Yes. Except, of course, the people she's complaining about, presumably that's her job now. As far as I'm aware, she's no longer a nurse. I if anybody's got any information about that. But as far as I'm aware, she's a full-time anti-people thing now because of God told her to be, like he does with lots of people, like, Enoch Burke, yes. But, I do like the way that she just casually uses the word pervert, because we do get a lot of this stuff, which again does remind me of the 1980s and various people and the way they used to describe gay people. Not the LGBT Alliance, of course, because they're all lovely gay people, all of them, certainly all of them, apart from the ones that aren't, of course. But we won't talk about that, and the media certainly won't. It won't at all mention about the fact that they're probably still based in Tufton Street, because they themselves don't talk about that. I wonder what they do as an actual job. Hard to say. But in many ways, my favourite as a teacher was Joanna Williams, part of the sort of Battle of Idea crew at Spiked, as she is, who got the usual slot, as they do in the Times, for this. You can have a look at the actual article, but this is her on Twitter. My essay in today's Times: when teachers assume that the values they promote are superior to those of the home, parents are not only viewed as inadequate, but in need of re-education. Pupils are encouraged to challenge the prejudice of their parents. Yes, indeed. But think about that, just very, very briefly, if you will. I've been a teacher for about 25 years. Yes, I do know a lot about young people, specifically the young groups of young people that I work with, in a way that parents can't do because they don't have that breadth of knowledge. I'm not saying that I know their children better than they do, but in terms of being an expert in and around, for example, young people with autism who I work with, there's a really good chance that I am. Now, you can argue in that kind of particular American Christian evangelical, oh yes, it's that lot again, Joanna, isn't it? No, we won't talk about that, of course, but realistically that's what it's all about. It's about that, appealing to that particular group of moneyed people. Good, godly Christian types. It's all about that American notion about the parents know best. Well, they don't, I'm afraid. And you'll notice with Joanna's piece, if you read it in the Times, if you can get behind the firewall, is that, she's very much sort of suggesting that teachers should kowtow or bow or something else to the reality that they're presented with in and around the children and their parents' demands in and around their children. And you can see exactly what form of reality that would be. It would be a reality whereby I would have to simply do whatever parents wanted me to because their God knows better than I do. And I'm sorry, I can't do that, because if I did that to a Muslim, it would get the Christians upset. And if I did that to a Christian, it would get, the Jehovah's Witnesses upset. So I don't do it to any of them, but I do follow what I think is A, the law, not I think the law actually states, and B, what I think is the most moral thing to do. A bit like, what would Jesus do, if you want to be vaguely religious about it. But perhaps worst of all, for all of these people over the weekend, is there was finally released the evaluation of the government's 2016 to 2019 anti-homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying programme in schools. Now, you're probably going to expect me to have a look at a report and really slag it off in terms of the methodology. But unfortunately, this is a government report and as such wasn't simply paid for so that a group of people at Tufton Street could get richer and that the Daily Telegraph could write about how evil trans people and teachers like me are. No, it actually suggests that programmes which are designed to be inclusive in schools, which may or may not, completely ignore the reality that certain parents want to have, in fact do an awful lot of good and are very, very positive. Now, oddly enough, this report was suppressed under the previous, specifically May regime. Reality biting yet again. It does raise its ugly head, doesn't it? And yet, oddly, I'm the ideologue. One is reminded once again of a small group of rebels battling the Empire, and I'm the Empire, allegedly. Yes, not really understanding that particular one. Or if you wanted to be brutal about it, because I don't really like the Star Wars universe, the Jedis were simply upholding a whole bunch of nasty capitalist organisations that promoted slavery. There you go. Yeah, that'll put the cat amongst the pigeons, because once again people will prefer to argue about that rather than actual reality, won't they? Yeah, it's a bit like slagging off the Marvel universe. By God, that gets Carl Benjamin cross. Yes. Anyway, do have a lovely weekend. You can tell I'm feeling better, can't you? Do have a look at the report. Do have a look at the other stuff that I have ever as I post down the links down below. Feel free to disagree with me, but hey, that'll just be your version of reality, and you know how much I think that's a warped one. I have my own set of beliefs, but I don't impose them on others. I don't insist that certain children are allowed to be, well, taught tosh by their parents. No, sorry. Statements of reality, as we used to say back in the day. Do have a lovely one.